Hello super friends and welcome to DC TV Talk. This is the show where we talk all things Supergirl, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Arrow and Black Lightning. And in today's video I'm going to be doing my slightly late review of Legends of Tomorrow Season 3 Episode 10, otherwise entitled Daddy Darkest. This is of course the season premiere, the mid-season premiere of Legends of Tomorrow Season 3. This is an episode that we've been waiting quite a long time for, but it's finally arrived, and I do think that this episode was truly fantastic. The biggest talking point going into this episode is of course John Constantine, who is a massive fan favourite character within the Arrowverse who shows up every once in a while. We last saw him in one episode of Arrow Season 4, he now returns in Legends Season 3, and he plays a pivotal role in this episode, which I really liked. I thought the fact that he was in this episode was more just going to be, not necessarily a cameo appearance, but he's just going to be there, and he's not going to have a lot to do with the plot. It's just the fact, oh, it's Constantine and he's here, but he actually has a part to play in the story when it comes to the villain of this season being Malice. He actually is aware kind of what Malice is and what he could be, and he actually helps with all that, and he actually helps with the connection with Sara, which is a very interesting development. And there's also just so much going on with Constantine, and the thing is, Matt Ryan just nails it as Constantine. He's so good, he's so entertaining as a screen presence, and I absolutely loved his charisma and his energy. He just has so much of it, and he's great in this episode. This is probably my favourite episode in the Arrowverse where we've seen Constantine. I think he's phenomenal, and this is definitely a great character for this universe. They need to bring him in more often, or the CW needs to give him his own show, because it was such a shame that NBC cancelled the Constantine show, because he needs his own, because he can't just keep coming up as these cameos. He needs to actually be his own character in his own show. And but this did feel like a Constantine episode. This had a lot of supernatural and a lot of horror aspects to it, which really fit Constantine and his character and his world. And overall, I think Constantine was a fantastic addition to this episode, and I'm glad he was in it. He made it 100 times better and more than it could have been. Speaking of Constantine, we get a very unexpected hookup between two particular characters, being John and Sara. This kind of came out of nowhere, but I really love the scene because we have these two characters who are in a certain situation together. They end up in this room, and you know, they kind of have a little romantic moment, and I really love the line where they're about to kiss and start making out, and Sara says, "Are we really that desperate?" And that was a brilliant line. I thought, you know, that kind of self-realization that Legends likes to do, and it was a brilliant line. And then John just kind of goes, "Yeah," and then they just kind of get on with it, and it's great. And then we actually see, you know, John and Sara have a little hookup. Obviously this isn't going to be a serious relationship, because obviously John Constantine is not going to stay on this on the show. I mean, he's already left. He leaves at the end of the episode. But it was just a nice little moment, and just like funny and unexpected to take the fans off guard. And definitely, I think the fans are going to really appreciate what that particular scene illustrates for us fans. Now we get a little bit more development in the field of Malice this episode. Now, we were told that we were meant to see Malice this episode, but we didn't actually see him. Supposedly he's a completely CGI character, and I imagine this is because they are covering his face, because they're going to do a reveal at the end of the season or midway through the season where we are going to find out who he actually is, and he's going to be someone we would recognize, perhaps maybe a dead legend. He could be, you know, a legend who's died, or just another character in the Arrowverse. I actually have a Malice theory video coming out soon, so you can stay tuned for that, about a particular theory that's floating around about Malice. But we do get to see a bit more of him. We get to see him talk through young Eleanor Dark, who's in this episode, who is of course Damien Dark's daughter. We also get to see him speak through Sara, thanks to the help of John. And he does seem to be a very ominous threat. He's talking about all these different prophecies, and he's talking about being in every point of time in history. And he's just he seems to be a big, imposing supernatural threat, but what his motivations are and what he really wants to do yet is still unclear. And that makes it a little bit difficult for me to really understand the true threat of Malice and actually appreciate him as the main villain of this season. Because I still wish they kind of would have made Rip Hunter the villain of this season, if they would have just left him evil at the end of season 2. But hey, what are you going to do? But I hope Malice gets a bit more writing and a bit more treatment. Hopefully we see him next episode. I really hope we do. Although based on the promo, I don't think so. But we need to see him soon so we can really appreciate who Malice is and actually see him as a viable threat to the Legends. Now, as I said, John allowed Malice to speak through Sara, and this actually brings up a very interesting point because Sara now has a connection to Malice, or perhaps she always had a connection to Malice. And this is interesting because if Malice always somehow lived inside of Sara because of her connection to demons and because of her connection to, obviously, the dead, because she was, of course, resurrected from the dead thanks to the Lazarus Pit and all that, and the bloodlust, and then Constantine brought her back to life in Arrow Season 4, you know, it's just she does have this connection to Malice, but perhaps Malice has always been there and was using Sara as a spy. Maybe he has been spying on the legends through Sara's eyes, and that's how he was able to find them all the time. I feel like this is just a thing where perhaps the team is not going to be able to trust Sara for a particular point in time, and I'll get back to that in a minute with a scene towards the end of the episode. But I feel that this is definitely something that's going to bring a lot of tension between the legends and Sara, who is of course their leader. So it's going to be a very interesting storyline going forward, and I want to see how this actually develops. And this is probably the most interesting thing about Malice right now. Also, I apologise if this review is a little bit all over the place, but, you know, it's been a couple of days since I've seen the episode now, so, you know, I'm a bit all over the place with all of it. But we then have a scene between Nate, Amaya, and Kuasa, where Kuasa shows up on the Wave Rider and starts fighting Amaya, and this is where we get something very interesting, which I've seen a lot of people point out, and I also saw it myself in the episode, which we see Kuasa, she has a bit of a scuff with Amaya, and then Nate as well, and Amaya puts her in the prison inside the Wave Rider, but then she takes him out, and then as Nate, or she takes her out, sorry, and then Nate comes back and freezes her with Leo's cold gun, but then we get a very interesting scene where she breaks free and starts trying to drown Nate with that water power that she has, you know, putting it through the guy's mouth. She's doing that to Nate, and obviously Amaya, who is obviously in a relationship with Nate, kind of on and off, we see her trying to stop him, and eventually she says to Kuasa, "You need him too." And this line is very important because I feel perhaps Nate is Kuasa's grandfather. Maybe. This may be a bit outlandish as a theory, but it's just the way that she said, "You need him too," and obviously the fact that these two characters are in a relationship on the show, it just seems like a thing that could happen. And I feel that because Nate is perhaps not an original character in the Arrowverse, he was originated on Legends, he doesn't come from like Flash or Arrow, he doesn't necessarily have a longevity on the show, so if Legends ends, then he will be gone, you know, particularly, so I feel this is a way to give him a bit of a story which doesn't link back to the show he originated from, because obviously he doesn't have one. And the fact, if he is Kuasa and Mari for a great reason as well, that he is both, God, I cannot speak, if he is both of their grandfathers, then that is a very interesting family dynamic, and I think it's going to be an interesting story, and again will provide even more conflict between Nate and Amaya, which they already have quite a lot already, but it's just something I noticed and picked up on, and I feel it is quite obvious at this point because of the relationship that those two characters have. We also find out at the end of the episode, or towards the end, from Agent Ava Sharp that Rip Hunter has escaped from custody of the Time Bureau. This was kind of obvious, we knew Rip was going to get out, he's kind of a master in that kind of thing. But obviously Rip is going to be a big player in going up against Malice, he seems to know quite a lot about him. And I think this is good, I think we need more Rip on the show, because Rip Hunter is one of my favourite characters in the Arrowverse. I think he's just so cool, and I think he's a great character on Legends, so I really want to see him more. I think, you know, seeing him coming back will be awesome, and also I feel that the reason he has also escaped is because he's going to recruit Wally West. Now, obviously, we do know that Wally West is coming onto Legends as a full-time member in episode 13, however, he will be making a cameo appearance in episode 11, and then we'll see him fully become a full-time cast member in episode 13. So I feel Rip is going to head to Central City in 2017 or 2018, depending on where the timeline falls, and we will see him go to Central City and recruit Wally West. And this is where we will see Wally get his introduction, because obviously he does know Nate Haywood, we know that, and he knows Sarah Lance and a few other legends, but we will see him come across Rip Hunter, because it is rumoured that Rip Hunter is the one to recruit him. So I feel this is going to be the scene. We will see Rip escape, and we will see him go and meet up with Wally in Central City, and I feel this will be a very cool scene. Also, I feel, I'll get more into this in my Malice theory video, which is going up, you know, whenever it comes out, that Wally may have a connection to Malice, and maybe that's why Rip Hunter recruits him, because I feel like there is kind of this thing that maybe Wally is the key because of who Malice could potentially be. So, with all that said, I feel Rip, he has escaped, he's going to go to Central City, he's going to recruit Wally because he wants Wally for the team to defeat Malice. Now, you may remember a few minutes ago I was talking about Sara's connection and how the team may not be able to trust her because of a certain thing. Well, we find out that Ray actually created a specific weapon to stop kind of this supernatural being thing, and Constantine actually says to Ray at the end of the episode, keep that gun because you may need to use it. And this suggests that perhaps Sara is going to become overpowered by Malice and again will not be able to be trusted and will not be able to be controlled, causing Ray and the other legends to detain her with this weapon. Obviously, Ray having all this kind of tech is a typical thing on Legends. It was a typical thing back on Arrow as well. So the fact he has this new piece of technology, which is obviously going to become a plot device later on in the season when Sara does eventually lose her mind, it's just a little bit of setup, and it's something that I feel is very obvious where Ray is going to have to shoot Sara with this gun or this weapon to contain her while Malice is inhibiting her body. And finally, we got an awesome scene, just a really nice scene, which was Leo's goodbye. Now, Leo Snart was, of course, in this episode. He was in last episode as well, following the crossover. This is the Earth X Captain Cold, or Citizen Cold, and he was saying goodbye. This was his final episode on Legends of Tomorrow. Of course, Wentworth Miller has a contract with the CW. His contract has now officially expired. I believe he has one more episode in his contract for The Flash, so we should see him show up on The Flash once more this season, and then he's gone. But this is his last episode on Legends, so to see him say goodbye was a really nice moment, and it felt like a goodbye to that character. And also the little moment between him and Mick was really nice, because obviously them two are partners, they always have been, even though they're from different Earths. It's nice to see that that connection exists, no matter what version of them from the multiverse these characters are, they will always be buddies. And it was just a really nice goodbye scene. I really appreciated that, and I feel like Leo was a really nice addition. I liked having him around. I thought he was great in the crossover. It was nice having him for a couple episodes too, and I'm glad that we got to spend quite a bit of time with him. And unfortunately, Captain Cold is now kind of gone for this universe, but it was fantastic while we had him, and yeah, it's for sure I'm gonna miss him. So, what did you guys think of episode 10, Daddy Darkest? Tell me in the comment section below what you thought, what you liked. I think that this episode was very, very strong on the whole. I really enjoyed all the elements of it. There weren't really many weak things about it, I don't think, really. There was a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, we had Leo's last episode, we had Constantine being on it, we had a lot of Malice going on. There was a lot of stuff that happened in this episode, a lot of stuff that went down, as you would expect in a mid-season premiere. And I feel overall this was a great episode of Legends. I really enjoyed it. It was just a really nice, fun episode with some awesome stuff for the fans, of course. And Constantine, what a hero. So overall, I think Daddy Darkest was a fantastic episode of Legends, and I really enjoyed everything it had to offer. So thank you guys for watching this episode of DC TV Talk. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, it will help me out a lot, and share this video with anyone and everyone you know who loves DC TV and get them to join the community. And as always guys, please subscribe for all of your latest content on Supergirl, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Arrow and Black Lightning. And with all that said guys, I hope to see you again in my next video.